Sure.
I'm gonna steal this and just bring it over just in case we need to.
Yeah, yeah. I feel we're in good hands.
Yeah, we haven't got a tech.
I can click button. Push them. Yeah, that's true.
Well, welcome everybody. I'll call to order the meeting of the RTM Education Committee. It's a special meeting, and the time is. And the first order of business call to order. Second part is roll call, and so I'll just go in order. I'm Chair Whitney, Mike Whitney. I'm here. Representative Chase here. Representative Frickman is not here yet. He said he'd be here around 7. He's usually coaching until it gets dark. And Representative Gibbs.
Yes.
And Representative Gustafson. And then on my list, I've got Representative VZ Williams, who is not here. But I'm told we have a new member,
Delroy.
Representative McElroy, who's here. So we have quorum. And then I'm going to, everyone else can introduce themselves, not just make note of it. Start.
I am Dr. Clint Kennedy. I am the Director of Technology for Groton Public Schools.
Susan Austin, Superintendent.
Ken Knight, Business Manager. Don't you know who I am? I'm Dean Antifas. Sam Kilpatrick, Facilities Director for the school district.
And online, you can unmute yourself and introduce yourselves.
Matthew Schulman, Board of Ed.
Bill Piazza, Assistant Superintendent.
Rita Volkman, Board of Education.
Beverly Washington, Board of Education.
Andrea Ackerman, Board of Ed.
I think that's it. Thank you very much. And if the meeting goes on and someone online has their hand raised and we don't recognize, but unmute yourself and have us recognize you. That'll be fine. So before we go through the items on the agenda, just want to go through how it sort of works for the budget meeting. So we have first the main education budget, and then we have the CIPs, the capital improvement project. And on each one of those items, we'll start by motioning a number. And my understanding is actually you can motion any first number within a range, but the tradition is to motion the number that the town council passed. And then with that motion, that opens up discussion. That has to be seconded. It opens up discussion. And then we can go in turns, asking questions and answering things, but I can still be relatively informed here. To kind of promote more of a conversational tone. And then if someone wants to put another number up, they can make a new motion, and that's the second, or I guess it's the first amended number. And then you can have another one. You can have like basically 3 numbers up on the board. If that happens, then we vote on the most recent one first, and if that passes, that's it. If it doesn't, we go to the next number. And presumably someone could put up a new number and go back and forth. It doesn't tend to happen too much at the committee level, but it can happen more at the broader RTM level. And so we'll have the discussion in each item, and then we'll vote a number. Now, coming out of the committee, we are voting really on a recommendation, what we recommend to the RTM. So majority carries regardless of the number. And our bounds are 0, and whatever the highest is between what's called the manager's budget and the town council number. In this case, the manager's budget and the town council number are the same on all the items we're contending with. And on several of the CIPs, we're voting between 0 and 0. So we really don't have to do anything for those, but all the others were between 0 and the number that's passed by the town council. And that manager's budget is in quotes because what the manager does is take anything that the Board of Ed approved and just fold it into the budget that goes before town council. So the Board of Ed budget for us is synonymous with the manager's budget. So I was wondering if anyone had questions, procedural ones, before we move forward. All right, let me find the, I keep losing my agenda. Here it is. I changed my Chromebook. Here it is. Okay, so our first item is account 1080 education. This is on page 167 in the main big Town of Groton budget book, but it's also detailed very nicely in the supplemental book from the Board of Education. So, so for 1080 education, I'd be willing to accept a motion for a number, and if someone needs that number, I can give that to you.
I'll make a motion, 81,510,627.
I can second that motion. Give me that number again.
81,510,627.
Is that check? All right. So, we can open up discussion. I was wondering though, as a first part of the discussion, if you just want to give sort of Superintendent Austin, just sort of that letter to the mayor overview first, that kind of helps start us off.
Well, I would say that I think you've heard this before, but this has been a year of inflation. One of the things that we did that was a big job, we haven't done this in years, was to negotiate a bus contract. And our bus company, we only really had two that came in, and one was lower than the other, and it was our former bus company. And they are one of the few bus companies that have a union, and they had been really kept up with those minimum wages and trying to keep bus drivers. Last year was a real problem, not having enough bus drivers. So they negotiated that contract mid-year last year. And we were really looking at a multi-million-dollar increase. So we were able to negotiate because they were the lower bidder. And we said, we cannot take on $1 million here in the beginning. So really with the work of Ken and Sam and, the CEO of the company, we really were able to streamline it. So, the way they usually do a contract, it's $1 million up front and then another, and then they make it smaller increments. So we actually spread it out over time so that it wouldn't hit us that hard. And we really worked with our board. When I first came out, I just kind of showed what it would be with inflation and, without any loss of staffing and just kind of status quo budget. And we really worked diligently and went through every single item. Our board is really due diligent about asking questions and going through every single line item, and causes us to think and rethink and go back. And, just thinking about some of the big ticket items, but besides the inflationary things, we did use our DOD supplement funds. They had gotten up over $1 million. So we really used all of our technology, took it out of the operating budget and used those supplemental funds. We're a little nervous about impact aid, especially with some of the federal law that's coming down the pike about impact aid. And our numbers are just at that 20%, and military connected with the first and finest, largest submarine base, largest military service. And those impact aid dollars, those $4 million that come in every year, go right to the town to pay for education budget. We count on that money. And then we get this extra supplement fund, which we've always used for technology. I came in with Dr. G in 2014, and we've always been real good stewards of that money. But you just never know, are you going to keep up with that 20% and keep getting those monies? I go after those competitive grants, like every single one I can find. And those DODIA supplements, I've just put in number 7. It was a 1.250 million. And it's really to sustain some of the good work we have with International Baccalaureate, intra-district magnet schools, partnerships in the community, and a little bit of staffing, but it's mostly for professional learning for our teachers. And so we're able to really have this high quality teaching and learning and staffing but I don't count on my operation budget for that. I really look for these other grants. So just a little bit cautious about that supplemental fund, how long it's gonna last. Should anything impact aid, so just really cautious with that. But I really feel, one of the things that we did see was that, we've got this ARP ESSER, a little bit of a cliff. We've got some personnel in there, some social workers, some extra Project Lead the Way teachers that we really want to keep. So we were able to work with Clint, brought in a super power school scheduler, because we know we've had some low numbers at the school, and we've actually been doubling up our AP and IB. We're getting more kids in those higher level classes, which is just what I want. And so no longer are you seeing 6, 7. We're really looking at, more like 14. And this next one, we've got like about 22 in those classrooms at Fitch. So we were able to reduce 4 FTEs at Fitch, but instead of taking them out of the budget, we were able to put ARP ESSER staffing into it. So now we've taken them on in our operating fund. So we're just trying to be real good stewards so we don't hit a cliff. And, and that was really one of Jay's, one of our board members. The board really came up with some great ideas. I think also looking at health savings was a big plus for us. We looked at the corridor, which is the red zone. You don't want to touch that. You really need those funds in a health savings account should anything happen. Then we had this kind of yellow area that's our caution, and it was pretty healthy. And Ken and Lori Lapine, who's our HR director, really scrutinized that to say, what is kind of the least amount we can leave in that yellow zone? So that was quite a bit of, we were able to pull from that to reduce the budget. So I think there was no stone unturned when we looked at this budget. I don't know, do you want to say anything? Because you were there right by our side, asking questions and.
Yeah, the two big drivers, of course, were transportation was holy smokes.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons for the two bidders, and we were speculating, maybe you guys may know better, is that no matter what you think of our district, we're actually one of the larger districts in this end of the state. And so there apparently are only so many bus companies that can handle our traffic. So you'd love lots of bidders, but there were only 2 apparently who thought they were capable of fulfilling the contract with us. So that's one. And the other one, of course, was a big driver was staff salaries. These are negotiated, programmed in from, I don't know when we started the teachers, for example, what year we're in with that one. Are we in our year 1, I think?
I think we're at 2,
Yeah.
but we've gone to 4-year contracts, which also saves us legal bills. And, instead of doing a 3-year contract and all these different unions, we've moved them to 4, and that's been great. So we're trying to find other ways to be efficient, with all of this process.
Yeah, we were lucky. We were not hit with, they didn't try to match the inflation rate at the time. So they're running under the inflation rate.
Yeah, we did pretty well.
Hey, we wanted 6%, we want an 8% increase because that's what's going on in the supermarket. And it didn't happen that way. We got a kind of a normal times and kind of an increase.
Right.
So, but still, it's a lot of people. I think the teacher block itself is probably the single largest employment block in terms of bodies.
Absolutely.
And so the dollars just add up.
And all of our staff is 75%, 3/4 is staff and benefit. So that's what we pay for. Mike Grenier used to say, what do we give our teachers? What do we give, our kids in school these days? We give them the highest quality teachers and paraprofessionals and principals and custodians and, admins, assistants. So, we pay for the people is what we do. And then I would say other grants that we've been looking at, when we come up to the CIP, we can share that, but this whole safety security, we're going after a safety security grant by the state. So while the dollar amount looks a certain way here, we're hoping to get half of that paid for by the state. I know HVAC has been another area that I've paid for through ARP ESSER, and we've taken care of some of those we could take care of through that. So always like looking what's the next best thing that we can go for. So.
For point of reference, if I might, I dug this out of my own records. Do you know what the fiscal year ending 11 figure was? 72,645,000. So that was 13 years ago, or 13 years back from this proposal.
Yeah.
So
That was before me.
my calculated per year, average per year is less than 0.9% increase. Obviously, all, you've seen the histories are different.
They go 0.5,
Some
0.6. Yeah, there's,
Yeah, but if you were to take that 0.89% per year, you starting from 2011 to get to us 13 years later, this is where you wind up, for whatever that's worth.
I don't know if that answered it, but that's kind of my elevator talk,
That's very
a
helpful.
long elevator talk.
Actually, so you mentioned quite a bit about transportation, and that was on our minds last year
Yeah.
and this year as well. I was wondering if anyone wanted to dig into a little more detail on that. I've got a couple questions myself, but
Fuel costs too, just like at home. I mean, those electric bills, they just doubled and everything was like doubling. So at home and at school, so,
yeah, for fuel, at least some of it weathered because of the switch to gas.
Yeah.
Good for the buildings. I noticed there's a line item in the school budget for diesel fuel for the buses. Is that contracted? That's not part of the STA contract. That's separate.
Yeah, we pay for the fuel. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, we pay for the fuel.
we, when they pay for it, we're not sure where they're getting it and how much they're charging us. So we just felt more, I think we felt more confident, right? in Going and kind of having a little more control.
They're gonna mark it up.
Yeah.
Is that through like the town? It's probably not through the town pumps because I don't see them over
We
there.
tried that.
Yeah.
We tried to see, could we buy it from there, to save some money, but I don't know if that ever happened, came to fruition. They didn't say yes to that.
Imagine
So.
the line.
But
Imagine the line.
The
Yeah.
bus depot,
I think we're only talking about.
the small buses,
that buses.
yeah. Yeah, not all the big buses.
They call the short buses, vans. Buses, so, and we have about 16 of those, roughly 16.
Yeah.
Hoping to get those into the pumps, but we can't do it right now. So we're still talking.
Yeah, we're trying to.
Stay in the town.
And I noticed, so that line item, I don't know, I could look and find it, but I think that was kind of maybe up double from last year. My guess is, and I'm thinking of fuel prices didn't jump up that much, but my guess is we're kind of seeing a year lag because you probably agree on prices like, a year before it actually goes in. But like to ask you that, so it jumped up quite a bit from last year.
Yeah.
to this year.
yeah, there's really two factors that are impacting that. One of them is the increase in rate for the diesel fuel. That obviously is having an impact. But in addition to that, this year, we're able to take it, the district buys its diesel fuel kind of at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So we have a contract to buy a certain amount of gallons. And because of the pandemic and then ensuing years, we didn't utilize all those gallons. And so in 2023, we utilized the remainder of all those gallons. So we got a big benefit in 2023. And we took that into account when we put the budget together for this year. And so it's kind of a double whammy where we're increasing. We don't have that benefit anymore, but in addition, the rates have gone up considerably.
And we're in a consortium. We try to do the consortium thing
That's it.
And
with
the
all
third-
of these,
the
so we
third
get,
factor is the fact that we have much longer bus runs because we're running magnet schools throughout. So we have kids that are going from the north end of town all the way down to the Mystic River, so on and so forth. So the buses are crisscrossing town and it runs much longer than they were previously.
we used to have 3 tiers. There's no way during that period of time that we could have run 3 runs. Time, number of kids. And so we did put the middle school and high school kids together, and actually our high school kids make good bus patrols. So they sit in the back, and it's actually been pretty smooth. We've got the schedules now really close to each other, so nobody's really waiting on the bus. But because the factor was the elementary runs were so much longer because of the magnet piece. And so that we needed that time to get them to and from school.
And Representative Frickman isn't here yet, but I know he likes asking about transportation for sure. One of the questions came up at our earlier meetings was about, okay, so as you said, we're a 2-tiered bus system now. So the high school and the middle school are on the same bus. And so that was supposed to drop. We were waiting for that to drop things down. But then last year, the comment was, well, we're still under the same transportation contract, right? And so that would be reflected in this new contract. And so just if you can articulate how that was reflected in the new contract.
I don't remember thinking that there would be a definite cost beneficial. It was really more of a time situation, getting kids in the elementary schools to and from. So having the 2-tier, and then we were up without bus drivers. You remember that fiasco. So there were so many times that we had substitute bus drivers and we didn't have enough bus drivers to drive buses. So to have a 3rd tier in between, we wouldn't have made it with time and number of bus drivers. And then the money situation, we knew going into this, we had gotten evidence from across the state that these bus contracts were up millions of dollars from previous. I mean, it was happening across the state. Because when they first told me, I said, no way. We got to go back out to bid, right? And but that's the nature of what's going on.
We pay per bus per day, right? Sure. So you could run the bus 10 times. You still got the bus for the day, and that's what you're paying for.
Well, I sure remember, I may remember incorrectly, but I remember on our end, we were thinking could there be savings by going from three runs to 2. The fuel costs alone.
I think the only thing we saved was time. And even that,
May save some fuel in there as well.
Yeah, actually, we had to add a few buses in order to do this. And you're still moving X number of kids, X number of miles on a daily basis, so.
we also transport to the magnet schools in New London and Learn. And there is a benefit, there's a grant that we don't receive, it comes right to the town. So there are monies that go back to the town based on this magnet school bus grant. So
And
I've
that's
never calculated that into things because it goes to John Burt's office. But there are many things. The excess cost for special education goes right back to the town. We've certainly showcased all of the different revenue sources that we have with competitive and categorical grants and things that either come to us or come directly to the town to support the budget.
And that magnet school bus grant. I remember this coming up years ago now, but as I recall, I think it's 100% return on that. Do you know at all?
No, it's not 100%. It's based on the number of kids that go to those schools and actually ride the bus.
Mhm.
And so we submit an EDO 21 in the fall with those number of kids, and then the state gives us a dollar amount that per child. So that's
So it's for Ledyard, it's for all the New London magnet schools, it's for Learn, what about Grasso and Sacred Heart?
anything in town is not part of that. But
So that's just us doing that, taking care of that.
magnet schools, New London, RMMS, Ledyard, BOAG, that sort of thing.
And because it's in the news about Norwich recently, I know for tech schools, we're obligated as a town to provide busing there. I don't think it's the same for magnet schools. But I think we do as a town
Yeah,
provide
we do.
busing to all magnet schools.
And we've done more hubs lately. When I first got here, we were doing home pickups. So the hubs do save us, where the kids come to a certain area. So we have hubs, different locations around town. So they're easy enough access for families to get to, but it's not that door-to-door stopping.
And thank you. Okay. Anyone like to bring up different topics or continue that one?
So it looks like you have $199,999 savings in the health insurance. Is that we had mentioned earlier about taking out of the yellow block of money?
Yeah.
So, and that's how you're able to.
Yeah, what did we end up with at the end, after you took out from that right above the corridor? I mean, it was just enough. We have, with the new health insurance, there is a new regulation where there's an extra amount that we have to be prepared to pay
Yeah,
if there's something catastrophic that happens.
so the
So-
reserve is made up of the corridor, which is 25% of our annual claims. And then on top of that, what we're providing for is excess claims that could hit us. We have had an instance, I think it was 2020, where we had additional claims above what we would anticipate. And then in addition, there was what's called lasering. It's a stop loss. I don't know if you're familiar with stop loss insurance. Basically, it's we ask an insurance company to insure us against catastrophic losses for healthcare claims. And so that policy, they last year they said that they identify particular claims that's called lasering. That if it went over the deductible amount, we still would have to pay. So that was I think that was $400,000 above. So we provided for that in case that happens. And so that's what that additional amount of health insurance reserve was for.
And we work with the same group that has the towns.
It's
So they do it.
combined policy of the town. Yeah.
The spread between the super's original budget figure and the one that you see now is about $735,000. There's been a $735,000 move basically from an increase to the decrease that you see. So
For just health insurance.
for just for that line.
Yeah, for just that line.
I will add, there's one other item in there. We went out to bid for our health insurance claim processing. Currently, we're with Anthem, and Anthem actually came up with a better rates, and so that was also taken into account. I have that number here, I don't believe, but that was an additional savings over what we had originally anticipated in the superintendent's budget.
So you're with Anthem now or?
We're continuing with it.
Okay, good. And then kind of always, part of this is always projecting what next year's health claims will be. And obviously we've been through normal years from years before. Is it projected still to kind of increase?
They're anticipating a 5% increase in claims based upon the same number of participants.
And we keep track, the board looks at our health savings, our health account. And so the monies that we put in typically in a year, starting in July, we're under budget. So we have this nice steady till people make their deductible and then they have their surgeries and things, their babies. We had a lot of babies born this spring, I have to say. I don't think that has anything to do with it, but but anyway, so then we saw a jump up in February above, and that was the first time it came above.
Yeah.
But Ken's really good and steady because he, looking at it over time, it's kind of a trend. It's what happens, but it's never been more than what we had anticipated. So it's kind of what we had predicted and put aside.
It would help insurance.
What is other benefits under employee benefits?
What page are you on?
2-2, line 12. I'm wondering, there was a 39% increase.
So that corresponds with on the bottom of page 2-3, lines 89 through 94. So that this is kind of a breakdown of those numbers. And the big increase there is under teacher retirements. We had more teacher retirements this year, or
Okay.
anticipate having more teacher retirements in 2024 than we're having in 2023.
The good news about that, though, is when we hire new teachers, we usually hire teachers like in the first 5 years. She got a chemistry teacher and you need to get one for that kind of certification. But you typically are able, so you're hiring someone at a $50,000 to $60,000 rate versus, $100,000 or $99,000. So there are some benefits to that. But we do pay them. What do they do? $15,000?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the number per, but there's per the contract, there is a payment that's made
But,
to
yeah.
teachers as they retire.
So is that like the teacher's pension or the money they get every year?
No, that's a state. They
Oh.
contribute that like a social security for everybody
Okay.
else. They put that's called TRB,
Okay.
retirement benefit. This is just something that's a Groton thing in their
It's
contract.
a one-time
Time.
payment upon separation.
Oh, okay.
But it's like, I think
So
it's
it's just,
15,000 is the number I remember, so it's not
okay,
something that's extraordinary. But we have to account for it in the budget.
I see.
And just briefly, have you in general found it, had an okay time of hiring new teachers, or have been positions remain unfilled for a while?
No, the teaching staff has been really very good. I just met a wow, super person for math. As a coach, and because one retired. So we've been pretty fortunate that way. The paraprofessional, though, that has been really difficult, and we're getting ready to negotiate. I don't know if you heard, but there was a suggestion that the town council contemplated adding $400,000 because of the negotiation. We have put in 6%, I believe. And we're in negotiation, so this is a difficult kind of situation to talk about, but at any rate, we want to, and years prior, we, when they were in a third year, we added a fourth year, and we made sure that they were up to the, I guess, the
minimum
the
wage.
minimum wage, right? But, and that was ahead of time, ahead of schedule. But, it's not necessarily the most competitive, not when they can go to Walmart or Target and make $20 an hour versus, 15 to 17.
Other districts that makes.
Or other districts, Norwich and New London have used all their RFESTR money to, bump up those salaries to $20 or more. And so, I mean, that's a cliff, but luckily I don't have to do it.
That is a cliff.
And so paraprofessionals are hourly.
Yes.
And you're negotiating, so are they in a union?
They are.
And that's been that way for quite some
Right.
time.
There used to be a level 1 and a level 2. Most of the level 1s are retired, but they got a much greater benefit than the level 2s. But all the ones that we've hired since I've been here have been level 2. But they do make, the minimum wage, and as they come in. So
And some bordering districts pay more paras.
they do. They do.
And are they in general part-time, like under 40 hours a week, or full-time?
No, they're regular work a week. So it's what, 6.5 hours a day. So that's 32 hours. So it's regular full-time.
So they're full-time, and then I was just gonna ask if you guys kind of get into this, they must get benefits then, and does that show up in the benefits?
The
Overall benefits
though,
into the
I don't
budget?
think many take the benefits, because
Yeah,
the benefit package really costs.
Yeah, so per the contract, the benefit, the health benefits for the para is not attractive. And so a lot of them will go with a spouse or get it from the marketplace or some type of thing like that. So there's not a lot of paras that actually take the health benefits.
We do have certain aides and even security guards that aren't in a union, and they are really half-time workers. So we might get a K aide for the morning and then a K aide for the afternoon, and there are some cost efficiencies for that. And we don't need to pay benefits for that. But a lot of our security guards are retired police officers or retired folks that have other.
So I have questions.
Yeah, I figured you would.
So the budget went up 2.22% this year, the current year. It's going up almost 3%. From what I understand, that's a 4.45% increase to taxpayers. So since I'm elected to advocate for taxpayers, I'd like to put another motion on the floor. 79,157,251.
Want to say it again?
79,157,271.
Is there a second? That's last year's number,
This year's.
or yeah, that's. We need a second for that.
So if we second it, what does that mean? We'll
Just
consider both.
Yeah.
We'll consider, if it's seconded, this becomes the motion that we'd be talking about, and if no other motions put on the floor, then we vote on this first.
And then we still have to vote on the other one.
If this one passes, then that's
Then,
it.
okay, I'll second it.
Okay, you can, I guess you can talk about your motion.
Yep, so, well, like I said, I have to look out for, and I absolutely think you do a fabulous job getting grants and things like that. But my concern is all the ARP dollars and the coronavirus dollars and everything. When that goes away, what's gonna happen? I know last year when we were doing budgets, you said that you were gonna, all the staff that you hired with grants, the ARP grants and everything, coronavirus, you were gonna, like, they were gonna go away. You may keep a couple. So how many of those went away? I know you said 4 FTEs are left and you've absorbed 4 others from, I assume, the coronavirus.
Right.
All right, so how many other of those coronavirus staff are staying over and above the 4?
So we have a couple social workers, but we just applied for a grant for mental health, which will hopefully take care of one of the 2.
Okay,
We use Title I funds for social workers as well, so we really have them in a lot of grants. And then we had a lot of what we had hired through our Besser were tutors. So our schools have had an amazing amount of tutors. The only problem is because of absenteeism and everybody getting sick with the tridemic, we've had to pull our tutors and substitutes to really help cover. So, they are getting back to tutoring now that we're having a little bit better health in the spring. So those that anticipation, and that goes away September 2024. The expectation is that those tutors that are hired through that will not be continuing. So I think there might be a couple more teachers that maybe at the middle school that we'd have to contemplate, but with the scheduling, we're really hopeful that we're able to compact these classrooms and really fill them up 20 to 24 in the middle school and the high school, which should alleviate some of these one-offs of small classes of, sometimes 9, depending on the course. So I'm really hopeful that that's going to help also take care of that.
okay, thank you. Yeah, my concern is for the taxpayers because they're facing the same inflation rates that everyone else is. So I have to do my job here. Do you have a plan of action for when we are no longer an alliance district, when you lose that big chunk of money?
I'm not counting on that anytime soon. We just called the state and we are officially one of the 36 alliance districts. We are definitely the top performer, one of the top performers in the state, and I want to keep that going. But I really fought hard. I wrote a testimony and I got our legislators to work with me to say, we're not ready yet. They were ready to graduate us in the middle of COVID. And I said, that's not happening. We do have a district of 51% free and reduced lunch. A lot of my families have been homeless this year. They come from Branford Manor. We've had to provide everything from food and healthcare and transportation. Thank goodness we have school-based health. Thank goodness I have a food pantry in every school, backpacks and these young families, the heartache that I hear where they can't even cook for their children. They don't have transportation if they should miss a bus. So we've really, we have a district that has really a diverse community and a needy community. So we are like the other districts in our DIR in that, the makeup of our district and the socioeconomics plays a huge factor in staying in an alliance district.
So do you have to fight that fight every year to stay in alliance?
No, they've got us down. You had called. What did they say? Because
Yeah, I mean.
Is it year by year fight that you have to do?
they said for the next 5 years.
We're an alliance district for 5 more years.
And then if we graduate, we're in for another 5 years secured. That 25 million is what I was watching.
Okay. So we're good for.
What an alliance district is.
So an alliance district is a set of districts in the state that need more support from the state. We were the last few in, so we didn't get a big chunk of money from the state. A lot of the city schools, the Bridgeports, the New Londons, Norwiches, they get additional to the money, the ECS, which is our 25 million. They get additional monies to pay for books and all kinds of things, teachers and tutors, and that's beyond the,
But there's criteria to get into an alliance
Right.
district. One of them is low test scores.
no, that's
No?
really not it.
It
It's
isn't?
really socioeconomics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it really is.
And that's why I'm fighting. People can't afford it.
Well, but yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that, but with that comes things that the schools are taking care of for their families that are kind of above Call of Duty.
And the other thing for new people, I'm sorry, I thought I. muted that. Yeah, for the new people, it's whatever you increase the dollar amount, it's considered the minimum budget requirement. Which means it can never go back down.
Generally,
Right.
it's possible to lower, to go below if you find, I'm paraphrasing, it's correct me if I'm wrong, if you find a cheaper way to skin the same cat. So you're not obligated to spend exactly the same dollars, but you must provide the same services. And I think if you can do something for less, then you're allowed. to
So
do
let's
that.
just say that, you know, we kept it at the 79 million and they found $10 million somewhere and they don't need the whole 79 million, it doesn't matter, we can't reduce it.
I have to say, though, we charted our estimated budgets over, was it 5-6 years? And we basically, through the funding of impact aid and ECS, $10 million more that were towards the school budget came right to the town. Didn't come to the schools, but you know,
But
so
don't you get that through them?
no, it was monies, you know, when we set up and we do the pie chart and we say we're expecting 4 million from impact aid and 25 million. So we got above those costs. I think one year Mike was being very careful because that was the year, I don't know if you remember this year, it was awful, where they were planning on taking some of that $25 million. So we estimated 16 million, but we ended up getting the whole 25. So that was a big chunk of it. But then with the impact aid, we were estimating 3 million and it's starting to come in at 4 million over time. So when we added it all up, it was $10 million. We actually talked to John Bird about that because I said, you know, and he said that goes to a general fund. So it goes to pay for things that the town needs. You know, it is the town's money. But, you know, mostly when you think about that part of the pie, it really goes to pay for our education budget. But this was 10 million above what we had predicted. So
That's over time.
about 5 years. Yeah. It was over about 5 years.
There's a fundamental problem with the ECS number. We've been getting the same 25 million, I'll be honest, for eons. And at one point, it funded, say, half the ed budget. So we're told, hey, you're getting the same amount of money. Hartford's not cheating you. Yeah, but now it pays for a third or less. So yay and ooh at the same time. But I'll be honest, also, planning for a giant chop in that fund, it's not out of laziness. I think it's out of just sheer fear. I don't, if we could cut $15 million out of the ed budget, I'll do it. But I'm not expert enough to figure out where that would come from. Only because in all the other areas that the town deals with, parks, public works, even police, you can do a lot of deferral. And unfortunately with education, there's no such thing as really deferral. Well, we're not going to quote educate them this year, we'll educate them a year from now or 2 years from now, we'll do a catch-up kind of a thing. So it's a touchier thing. Also, I think our average increases over the years have been well below the CPI. So what happens is, knowing nothing's going to stay zero increase forever, knowing
It can't.
that there will be increases, I think perversely in a way, the more you hold back, I'm not shilling for, hey, let's just spend another 10% on the whole thing. But the more you hold back, the more you build up the movement to 1 year seismically move up a notch. I don't think that's exactly how our budget works, but in terms of just arithmetic, that's exactly what it looks like. We've actually had years of zero increases. So, and that's why when you average it out over 13 years, I get a 0.89% average annual increase, which is below the CPI. If you want to use the CPI as an indicator. So, hey, my taxes went up 25% last year. And I have kids in the schools, so I'm not happy.
But also we've seen the prices of houses in Groton. They've escalated to the fact that we don't really have that much affordable housing here anymore. So with those tax increases comes the possibility of selling a home at a much bigger profit.
So this brought up many important issues. And so I'd like to pick a few things apart. One, we've been talking about the educational costs there, the ECS funding. And that's at basically 25 million. That's what we estimated last year. What actually came in this year? Was it?
It was
25
just
million?
in the money. It was just right on the, yeah, it's been really pretty.
And is there any murmurings, because as I've heard budget deliberations at Board of Ed level, town council level, the common refrain is actually just even among our families, just, things are more expensive now, right? And so I think there's broad understanding. There have been any conversation at the state level, it's not set their budget yet to increase the educational cost share at all. Have you heard anything about that?
That's that, I'm not an expert, but that's a product of a formula that itself is the product of a lot of negotiations, concessions over years. And there's a concern among the smaller towns, not that they don't raise the issue, but among the smaller towns, that if they press for revisiting the formula, because you can't just say, well, give us more money. It's really all about revisiting the formula for how all towns get this money.
I think it'd be everyone gets more. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that would be
That would be
That would
wonderful.
be great if you got everybody in Hartford in line. But what will happen, the fear is among the small towns is that if they open up that box, that Hartford and Bridgeport and New Haven, Waterbury too, will rush in. You won't see an increase, but they'll just wind up with more of what's already there. And they'll dress it up somehow. I'm very cynical about this stuff. But in
That's
the
why we
end,
brought him
we'll
to the
get
table.
20 minutes, 25 minutes, say, thank you, ma'am, can I have another? And I think that's what accounts for a skittishness to go hard at it. So if you were a politician up in Hartford and you knew you could have everybody in line for increasing the whole pie, making a bigger pie, then everybody would be on board. But the concern is, hey, there's us and there's them. You gotta watch out for Hartford and New Haven and Bridgeport because they're looking for more money too. And it may come out of our pocket.
So I'll take that as expected to be 25 million next year.
Thank you, sir.
Right. And then, so something to notice, like, okay, last year we increased the budget a certain amount, 2.2%, I think, right?
2.22,
And
Yeah, I like that number.
yeah.
but then actually the budget book is very helpful because you've got workups in many different ways. And one of the pages talks about, okay, the budget's increased by this much, and then this is how it's funded from actually taxpayer funds or other locations. And last year, the taxpayers in the town of Groton, through paying, well, let's just say it directly, through paying town of Groton taxes, they shouldered not all of that increase. This year, I think we'd be shouldering all of the increase in the budget because the ECS isn't going up, and I don't think any other parts of the pie are.
We had a small increase in the special education excess cost grant, but the rest of them are pretty much staying static.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Well, as I said, there was a 4.45% increase to the taxpayers for next year if this all.
But that's with the whole budget. That's with the whole town budget, right?
No,
That's
that's
with-
with this. Just the educate.
And then it'll be more than that with the town? Because that was the number I knew.
That's the number I wrote down from the town council. They were talking, because they were on this, yeah.
Oh, you can't trust
So I'm looking at the supplement on 1-5. There's a great table. It's a calculation of town portion of the BOE budget. And it says increase in BOE budget funded by town budget, and it's $2,303,983. And then right below that is where the Representative Chase is talking about the increase in BOE budget funded by a town is 4.8%. So that's above what the town funded last year. And so it's the percent increase between last year's town funded portion $48.3 million up to this year's proposed $50.6 million.
Right. You
And so
see
that's
that
where
right
that
below.
4.8 comes up. Last year, so that's a 2.3 million increase in terms of the town portion, we'll say. Raised from town taxes. Last year, I look back, I think is only like 800,000. So it is in terms of the taxpayer burden from town taxes, it's quite a bit of a jump compared to last year. And one big part of it is, well, the ECS isn't going up. I don't know what helped last year. It might have been some ARC ESSER.
I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
So last year, that's when we looked at the impact aid that was coming in. And we had been budgeting it around 3.2%, 3.2 million. And it really had been coming in more around 3.9, almost $4 million. And so last year, we decided to put that in. And so that was a bump of an extra $800,000 of revenue that we hadn't been recognizing.
Going
before.
back to underrepresenting and accounting for the 10 million that came to the town in the name of education, but not spent for education. We thought we better be putting in everything that, that should be coming to education.
And for me, I think I have things straight. Sometimes I don't. The impact aid comes from the fact that we have
Military.
And is it just military? It's also electric boat defense.
It's a huge heavy lift for my staff because it's military connected. So it's all of the military, people who are serving our country. It's also people who live in Balfour Beatty, a little bit of percent for those who for our military. What is it, about $3,000 per family? And then just a little bit for others. So we also look at people who are at electric boat, but you have to be on a submarine on October 1st to be counted for. So, I mean, this formula is
working on summer.
yes, on that day.
That hasn't changed in 100 years.
I know that's like,
Seriously.
but it's really a lot
Trying to
to
track
count
it
for. And
all
then to
down
get parents to
is-
sign off on these impact aid forms has really been a stretch, but we got to it. I mean, they were really diligent about it. But it takes a lot of energy from our principals, our teachers, your staff, Jen Bell.
We may have gotten 1 or 2 calls about that.
Yeah, I bet you have. Yeah.
I
And
would
then
like-
there's also people who are connected with the the casinos and federal properties.
And for that though, it's families with children in the schools, right? And so some of the electric boat growth is if the profile is some of them don't have children yet, and so that would be reflected. But it's people with kids in school.
Right.
Have you crunched the numbers yet for this year to know what percent we're at?
Just 20,
We're so close.
we're just right
For
there.
the military dependent students, we're right at that 20%, which is the cusp on whether or not the DoD supplemental impact aid is going to come to us or not. So we're dangerously close. We continue to look for every student possible.
We've been told though that Balfour Beatty, they're not going to kick anybody out, but as this Columbia class gets built and more submariners come to Groton, they'll want that housing for their submarine families. So, but that means you're going to have families who've been renting at Balfour Beatty needing another place, and we hope they stay in Groton, but at least that would account for more impact aid.
And do we know what came? It is in the budget, but do we know what actually came in this
So
year?
far this year, it's
Yeah.
around 3.9 million so far, but
Sometimes it drips and drops into,
exactly.
right? Is that a good word for it?
Drips and drabs, sure.
The only thing I would say though, after looking through this budget so carefully that, getting, under that 3% was really tricky. The next thing I'd have to do is cut teachers. I'm already scheduling so that there are 20 to 24 in a classroom. We're a military community. That means 400 kids come into our schools in a year and 400 leave, a net difference of about 800 students. That's a lot to handle. And I would just hate to see us have to cut teachers at this time. And it could be devastating. Our numbers could, go way up in the middle school and high school, especially with the scheduling thing that we're doing right now. and what we've done with the FTEs. But I would also say that even in the elementary school, we're right now trying to recover from COVID. The state has put out all these unfunded mandates around reading, and we're doing all this great work, but it's really necessary that you keep those class sizes about, 18 to 20 in those elementary schools, especially in those primary grades, so we get our kids reading. So that's just talking from me as a teacher, running this district and knowing what it would take. And I mean, we can't stop the buses from running. We can't change our electric bill, or we can't change, so many things are set in stone for us and beyond our control. The only thing I would have control over is staff. And our paras are by law through an IEP necessary, our special educators, my speech language pathologist. So I can't cut certain staff. It would go down to the classroom teacher, and that would just be devastating. That kind of money.
What about administrators?
Well, even with our administrators, we really have bigger schools now with really high profile special ed programs. We brought a lot of our kids back, so we're not paying out of cost expenses. We've saved so much money by having these academy programs, the ABA programs. Those typically you send your kids out, but we can keep our kids in school. But there is a cost related to that, but it's a cost savings compared to sending them out. And it does take administrative, you can't run a PPT without an administrator. So running and evaluating teachers by law, we have to evaluate our teachers. It's the most important thing my principals do, because we want high quality teachers. And so you've got to be in and out of those classrooms all the time. So I'm just saying that's really my honest impression of that's, if I could do it and I could do it without cutting a teacher, if there was something that we had seen in this process that we could give up even temporarily, but really it's not, it's really staff.
How do you take into account the social emotional needs and the developmental delays? And how many children you're putting in the classrooms and the number, the ratios?
So I had told you when I first got here, we maybe had one social worker in the district. I have a social worker in every school, and these academy programs that we used to send out students, it could cost us $100,000 per student if they had social emotional trauma. We have smaller classrooms, about 6 to 8 kids. We have a certified special ed teacher and a social worker. And we've had such success rates where, these kids are really getting into classrooms and graduating from these programs, and they're with their peers in our schools. We also have preschools. We have special ed preschools with partners that are typical peers, and we have 2 pre-K programs, and we even have a TK, transition K, for our, we're the only state in the union that allows 4-year-olds to come to kindergarten, and they can be 4 until January 1st. And some are just not developmentally ready, and it can really start off a very, poor start. But we've had such success with this one program, we could probably run 2.
I've heard good things about it.
And the
early
teachers-
childhood, so.
Oh,
So-
fantastic. And while not many go to 1st grade, they really go to kindergarten. They are top dogs in their kindergarten. They are so ready and so prepared to take on reading. And so, those are the things that, I built with my colleague, Dr. Kinnear, before me. And, there are things that, are worth their weight in gold.
Absolutely.
I just get nervous about all the temporary money. Once it goes away, we're.
Well, I know that. Well, that's why we looked at it in this budget and
Yeah.
started doing something about it. Tutors, that might be something that we won't have forever. We will have a few because we've got them in title funds, we've got them in other places,
Right.
but we might not have as many.
Roughly how many tutors for our, sorry, I'm just filling out that part of that note.
Probably have that number.
It's okay. if
It's
you
a
don't
couple
have it.
per school, probably for literacy and for math.
Yeah, plus we have the SEL tutors.
Oh, did I have those? That was a really good idea.
Mhm.
So underneath the auspice of our social worker, we have really they're people who've, graduated from college and have an interest or maybe even a degree in, education. But also a real interest in social emotional learning. And with the support of a Dr. Mari Wrightington, who has, we've secured through Title II funds, who does a lot of training around social emotional learning and helped us build these academies. She's also helped our paraprofessionals and our teachers and our SEL coordinators. So they are just another pair of hands in the building to help kids deal with the stuff that they've had to deal with.
Have a total of 20,
The 20,
22.
I'll say in the 20s. That's good enough. So the positions that have been moved that were originally hired through Arvesa, made possible to that, there were a couple you said that have now this year been to
Those
regular
empty FTEs. So there were 4 in the operating budget. Instead of removing that cost, it was really advised by Jay and a couple board members that we use that to help, the cliff. And so we took 4 that were in our Besser and put them there
for
for
social work.
FTEs. No, they were teachers.
Oh, okay.
The social work, I'm going after another grant for social work
And so,
specifically.
so those 4 teachers, special ed teachers, or are they?
No, they were
Regular.
regular ed. I'm trying to remember. I think it was in English, math and science,
Okay.
social studies.
social studies.
Oh, I can't remember. We changed it once.
And then the other thing, I just want to make sure I had right. So impact aid, we're still worried year to year, as it has been for a long time. But for the educational cost share, now the word is that we're in for 5 years right now.
We are an alliance district. We're considered one of the 36 now.
Yeah.
And we were told by the State Department of Education that should we come up for graduation again at the end of that 5 years, that there would be 5 years reprieve where they would safeguard you.
Okay, good. So that's as far ahead that's farther ahead than we usually look. So that's good. Just briefly, along with those FTEs, you mentioned the scheduling. This isn't necessarily a budget question. Is it combining AP and IB classes?
It includes, we're taking a deeper dive at the request of superintendent, Board of Education, and so forth, because we're trying to be as efficient as possible, offering as many courses as we can, driven by interest of students and these programs we have, IP and AP, but increasing those numbers of students in those so that we can be more efficient.
So it's, I think from experience, maybe the English is like that, where it's combined like AP and maybe ECE and
That's
maybe
right.
IB too. I'm not sure. So it's that sort
We've
of.
gotten really creative with that, and then kids can walk away with several things.
So with that, is it concurrent teaching where you have, you say AB, IP students in the classroom taking 2 different classes, completing 2 different assignments, or are they all just basically coming away with an AB and an IP as they go through it? Or do you know?
They've aligned it. So they've looked at the curriculum. I know Amy McKenna has done a great job with ELA, aligning it with ECE. So she'll look at the standards for AP and the standards for ECE, and she'll put them together so that it's one course. The kids don't know the difference, but they're getting really both. And then they can take the AP tests, they're ready for the AP test, and they can also get UConn credit.
So those standards are there laid out, but there's obviously differentiation happening in the classroom based on what those students come with prior knowledge, what their goals are and so forth. But the standards are in the line.
Right. And professionally, I'm well versed in the AP and the ECE. The IB I'm a little less familiar with, but I do know it has a sort of a different style of assignment and expectations.
Sure.
And I could see how that merges together well with English. But for instance, like science, history, it might not as much.
I don't know, the College Board is really rethinking, instead of a mile wide, inch deep, they might go for depth of understanding. So there is going to be some shifts in AP.
Which aligns more with the philosophy of IB in general terms, yes.
And so I'm guessing this is an approach that's be transitioned in bit by bit.
I would say we also did creative things. We looked at the course selection and we looked at overtime. Clint was phenomenal with this project. And the things that weren't selling, we took them off. So kids didn't even have the option, but we did look at what kids wanted. Culinary arts is one of the biggest programs hits. And so the first level of foods 1 we, instead of making it a full year course, we made it a semester course. So then you get double the number of kids who want that course. So we really look at the schedule with that eye, that lens on how can we give kids what they want, what they need, but also be efficient and fill those classes up. And instead of running a class of 9, you might tell the kids, you know, it's not going to run this year, this semester or this year, but next year we'll run it. So get your friends and we'll fill it up. So I really, I'm so appreciative of that. The board has been saying this for a long time. They've been
So
saying,
does that mean you don't have like, for a whole year, you won't have the culinary?
no, it would,
That was-
culinary is not that problem, but there might be a class like graphic novels. And let's say it doesn't fill up,
Oh, I see.
you know,
Yeah.
A lot of the
Um,
electives.
so yeah, it's more of the electives.
Okay.
But, you know, you could say it's not gonna run this year, but it's gonna run next year, and the kids will hold off a year or a half a year, depending on if it's a full year or half a year course. Instead of running it for 9 and having a full FTE teacher,
Mm,
that period,
yeah,
you know, you're trying to,
but then some kids miss out because they may graduate.
It's hard to balance.
Yeah,
You can't
that is.
provide a full menu.
Right, right.
Every time.
You can't
Yeah.
restrict everything because, again, my daughter is still in high school. She'd like to go to medical school at some point. So wherever she's going, she's gonna do pre-med. She has a very good idea of the courses she would like to take that she thinks would make her prepared for her undergrad to go on to the next stage. So some kids wander, some kids are already focused, so she already has a map, and she has been disappointed because of scheduling conflicts. It's
Like Latin.
Yeah, it's either not offered or it's offered at the wrong time. Then, you know, you've only got the 4 years to pack it in. And for some people, they don't figure out what they want until the last couple of years, and all of a sudden they're thinking, holy smokes, and the course is not offered. So it can't be everything, but there's got to be a proper balance so that as many kids as possible within reason.
Right.
Yeah, what they're looking for. Yeah, the electives are always the interesting area. Sure.
And you quickly mentioned Latin. I remember last year, the discussion was broader world languages. I think my understanding is Latin is sort of being sunsetted within the school system, teaching in the classroom, like actual physically on site. And then I heard the other world languages like Japanese sign language, things like that. Does that reflected in new positions in the budget at all?
no, we've not taken on Japanese. We did take care of our kids. We still have a certified Latin teacher, but she also teaches social studies, so she's doing that. So there is that possibility if we got a group of kids who wanted to take Latin. But, you know, we were able to take care of their needs, probably not the way they wanted to, but through some online. I also work with Learn and all my superintendent colleagues around that we've talked about doing some of these languages, either kind of like what we did during COVID, digitally or, you know, remotely, but asynchronously or synchronously for those one-offs. So.
So that like changing the language offering is sort of the kind of a planning stage. It's not something new in this budget.
No, as a matter of fact, one of our last DODIAs is all about world language. So we're starting the carousel model in 4th and 5th next year. We've gotten a lot of professional development. That was another $1 million DODIA. And, you know, we do have the sign language, we have the French, and we have the Spanish at this point.
Those are just the most popular. They've always been.
And that is a new step going into the elementary schools.
Yes. So that it's for the seal of biliteracy. 9 credits at Southern Connecticut State University. I want them all to get the seal.
I have a big Title I and school lunches, essentially, right? We know that we started out the school year with school lunches being provided for all the schools. That was supplemental federal funding, maybe some state funding thrown in. Then that went away. It stayed at the schools that were Title I, which is Groton Middle School, but not Fitch High School, and some must have been probably Catherine K was probably one of them. But what does it look like essentially for school lunches next year? Because that's the
Good question. I think they're duking it out in Hartford to see if that will continue. We did pay in between, there was like a month and a half, and we still have some outstanding bills in the neighborhood of $6,000. of unpaid bills. We don't know if that will be ever repaid, but the ones that you're talking about, CK, Mystic River, Thames River, and Groton Middle School, we put together kind of like a grant. It's called their CEPs, Community Eligibility Programs. So for the next 4 years, those schools will get free lunches and breakfast because of the numbers of free and reduced lunch. Would we love to have this for our whole district? So we'll continue to count those numbers and try to push those forms. So families will fill it out. We have military families that don't fill out that form. They don't get SNAP benefits because of they have TRICARE, so they don't get Husky. So we have a lot of families, those young sailors don't make a lot of money. They could be getting free and reduced lunch, but they're real proud people. I know I come from them. And, that's a real, that's something I'm talking to Bob Ross, who's our military affairs office, about how do we make sure that the governor knows who we are, who these families are and who we're taking care of, So, so we really are looking, if we could get CEPs for every school, that would be our goal. Because then we wouldn't have to worry about legislation year to year.
Which ones have them for the next 4 years?
CK,
Yeah.
Thames River, Mystic River, and Groton Middle School. The ones that do not are our Charles Barnum, which is 71% military. And they could, if we could get them to fill out the form, I think they could be the next school to do it. Northeast Academy, which is 71% not free and reduced lunch. So that's my one school that could be close to out of balance economically. So I've got to really be careful that's why we're doing the magnet schools. And then high school. The high school was close though, wasn't it? It's really close.
The high school's been a plus living since it's the same
I didn't know.
population. You'd think it's the Groton Middle School.
You would think so, right? It's still, I mean, they're really close to 50%.
What's the threshold?
Do you remember, Sam? For CEP? It was above the 50% mark.
Does an explanation go? I still remember being a little kid, bringing that yellow piece of paper home to my mother and father, and they had to fill it out on October 1st, ring the bell.
Yeah,
Is there an explanation that goes with that, why they have to complete that document?
we send a lot of communication out.
Right.
You can attest to it, right? And
Yeah.
my school messengers, I really annoy people.
Like even in my own job,
Targeting and
Yeah,
Yeah.
as opposed to blanketing for next year. That's
even in my own job, people don't want to fill out those forms because they don't want to. And then when you explain to them why, then they're pretty good about filling it out.
right.
You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of people don't think that they're going to get the benefit,
Mhm.
but I think there could be people that they don't think they will, and they do get some benefit to it. So they should just fill it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone have any other questions?
So looking at the budget, it looks like 50–60% of the increase is due to contractual things, right? Or salaries and benefits. Pretty much.
Could be even more with the health insurance too. Right.
But health insurance actually, because it came down, is actually, but it's over $1 million in the increase for the teacher contract law.
Right. Then you have increases in. Is it? Oh. It seems, I know your initial budget was like what, 4.98 or something like that.
Yeah,
And so
close to
we're-
5.
Yeah. And they cut it down to 2.97. And you're saying if that new number became the number, you'd have to cut teachers, right? That increased class size, which is not good for the students.
Because we're increasing class sizes right now.
Yeah.
And because of the mobility, you never know what that number is going to be. Those 400 don't all leave at the same time while the other 400 come in. It's all throughout the year. So class sizes are known in this district to go up and down.
Also a contractual provision in the
Teacher.
teacher's contract that limits the class sizes. I don't remember what it is. There's a little table in there, but so we couldn't decide, hey, let's just put 25 kids in the classroom. That busts those limits.
25, maybe we get away with, but not 26. And you can't do it in science. You have to have 24 in science by law.
25 kids when I went to school. That was a full.
I had 30 when I was a middle school teacher. Those were
Yeah, 25. in
I wasn't teaching the way they're teaching now, though.
So that table on 1-3 really shows it. It's 62.1% is coming from taxpayers. Which is 4.48% increase.
We really, when we redid this budget book, all the lessons learned throughout the years, we've really tried to add some of these charts and graphs so people could
I think
understand.
they're great, yeah.
I love his graphs.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I get the whole 81 million. I totally understand it all. But I don't know how it going up every single year is going to be sustainable to taxpayers. Because they're suffering the same way, you know, with the increase in everything. You know, I get it.
Yeah, the last time, not too recent, not too far back, when you went from the 22 FY 22 to 23 budget, that was a 3.4%. That's the town.
What page are you on?
I'm on 1-4. Look at $46,000. $46 million figure, the $38 million figure, that's a 3.8% jump from the 22 to the 23 budget. Yeah. So,
And then there have been times that we've done better than that.
well, yeah.
I mean, there have been a couple of zeros there too, before the 2.2.
Yeah, and that's also, I mean, we haven't mentioned what other towns are doing, but that can also be a little bit of apples, different apples comparisons, because you don't know what they've been holding back that they're now spending money on, or what they're not spending money on because they funded last, you know, what programs they funded 2 years ago. So
All I know is I have the list of all the districts in southeastern Connecticut. And I don't know that there's anybody who's got a 2.97. They're all mostly above. There might be 1 or 2 others, but everybody else is more, you know, 4 or 5.
for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, exactly. Because Groton people don't pay taxes here. So on the same page, 1-4. So the proposed budget with all the revenue is 88 million. So that's what we're going to bring in FY 24, 88 million.
Is it better to go up 1-3 because 1-3 is.
Well,
the-
I want to
the
finish with this question.
Oh,
first.
just making sure.
Yeah, because this is revenue on this page.
Oh, it's got it on the other, it just adds up to the.
So it's 88 million. So does that mean you're gonna have a $7 million surplus?
No, because if you look, all the federal money, the excess cost, that goes to the town to pay for our education. That doesn't come to us. And then when you talk about categorical grants and competitive grants, and even Corona relief grants, those are specified. So whatever I write the grant for, I say I've got to do it, I got to do it. I'm a military child. I got to do what I said I was going to do. So, and from the state's perspective, like even with our ARPS, or, you know, people would come to me and they said, well, you have your ARPA funds. Well, that was for education. That was for, you know, really accelerating learning for kids, giving them what they needed so we could recoup from COVID. There was a little bit of operation, so we were able to do some HVAC that was sorely needed, close to $1 million of HVAC I was able to take care of that we didn't have to come to the town for. But it's very specific, thou shalt not supplant. So, you know, it's really supplemental, not to take over for the operation budget.
Yeah, and so that's what I was trying to make that point. My reading of table 1.4 is that bottom line 80 million is above the 81 million that is in there, and it's above it because of this, the line right above it, that total grants, the categorical competitive and coronavirus relief adds up to 6.6 million. And so that's the part that's out, my understanding is outside of the budget that we're considering.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, at least, I found it easier to look at the page before 1-3. And that's where you get the 81.5. And so this is, it's got the budget, and then there's a revenue source for the budget we're talking about. But for that, I see the impact aid, and that's what comes, that's at 4 million estimated that comes to the town, not into Board of Ed. But then there's also the supplemental impact aid. And my belief is that not on this table. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because that doesn't go to the town, that comes to us, and that's in the name of technology. So that's why we took really what we usually spend in operations and technology, we are able to take supplemental DOD
And it's
to
okay.
pay for it.
And so that supplemental impact aid, there's a balance and, but also the sum comes in. That doesn't show up on 1.-3. Does it show up in 1-4? Maybe the category.
It is included in the categorical. It's the amount that we're getting in the.
And
year.
you have that page 1.8.
And
That
then-
that kind of showcases, should we not get the 20% and that goes away? It kind of would be sustaining our technology or piece of our technology budget just until 2027.
Great. And so 1-8, I love this work ethic. It took me a while to figure things out, but that's through no fault of yours, just me. So this is talking about the beginning balance and what's coming in each year for.
And how we're spending it.
This supplemental impact aid that goes straight into the Board of Ed, the Groton Public Schools, and how you're spending it. This is, however, my understanding is this is outside of the budget we as the RTM consider, but it has relevance to it because it's paper technology this way.
And we didn't have to, and that's one of the way we were reducing the
Right.
budget with this and can reduce it for the next few years. And hopefully, God willing, with the Columbia class submarine and keeping our 20%, we'll continue to get this to pay for technology. So we won't have to add that back into the operation budget.
So are you saying that 6.6 million goes directly to the town and you don't see it? That's pay 1-4. Is that what you said earlier? Or somebody said earlier?
No, that is going to pay for specific things that were identified in both categorical, competitive,
Okay.
and coronavirus relief. So whether it's those tutors that we said we're gonna have to give up at some point, whether it's a couple of the teachers and social workers, whether it's some of, like a lot of Sam's budget is in the corona relief still for custodial and cleanup and anything that could be related to, keeping things clean and disease-free.
That goes to the school's budget directly.
So those are designated funds.
Designated, they're specified, and you have to spend them the way you said you're gonna spend them.
It's, so my question, so in the spending plan for 1-8, I can see that there's sort of a spend down plan if there's no further inputs to it.
Mhm.
Kind of over, I guess, like a 3-year schedule there. If you, so that's an insurance factor because you're always on this cusp, right? And if you go under 20%, then not only do the impact aid, that big 4 million go away, the supplemental impact aid, is my understanding, go away too. But my question is there any thought from Board of Ed or administration to kind of have a shorter amount of years of kind of insurance plan so that you could basically use this to offset more of the budget, either I guess you can't do it for this year's, but for next year's, because this doesn't have to be spent on technology, right?
No, but then you're gonna have to put your technology back in your operating budget. So it's like,
Oh, I'm saying the other way, because I can see, so if we get what's anticipated next year
mhm.
in FYE 2024, but nothing ever again, it seems like you can still use this for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's what it goes out to forecasted out to 2026.
So,
Seven.
so that's a drawdown plan, but if
Yeah.
you shorten that drawdown, it's insurance against really.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you could contemplate in a following year, but not this year. We even looked at it. So what if we had a scenario, we just talked about this and he came up with the chart for me when I said, and what happens if we continue to get those DODIA monies? We're still looking at a much reduced number, like down to by 2027, $113,309. So even if we were to get those funds continuously out there, the way that we're spending it on technology now will impact it. So there will be, you're not going to have $1 million in 2027. There's no possibility. You might, instead of having nothing at the end, you might have 113,000. So if best case scenario was that we stayed at that 20% and they continue to give us this supplemental fund, it's still going to draw down and eventually we won't be able to use it.
And one of the philosophies we're kind of going under for both hardware and software services is instead of these large purchases and then wait it out as long as possible and hope it stays and so forth, you know, be it packaged software or hardware, whatever, we've moved to try to shrink the yearly purchases. So it's more about, it's either a lease on the hardware side or a subscription model for the software. So we're staying current, we're staying with the same models. We're not trying to tie together multiple different models and versions over time, but have a predictable but a lower expenditure each year out over time, as opposed to these big jumps and down big jumps. You know, I've been a tech director in different Connecticut schools for 20 years, and that it adds cost when you do that because you're trying to integrate different models, and then you have haves and have-nots and so forth. So if we can even that out, lower it and even it out, guaranteed over time, it makes the integration and the predictability of that better. I would argue it ultimately a small decrease in overall expended over that time, but then it's a predicted amount to do that is really the general philosophy we've gotten into providing for certified staff, as well as students and software licensing, et cetera, et cetera. And software is not like a textbook anymore where we buy them and then we hold on to them for 10 years.
Textbooks aren't like textbooks.
But even though
Exactly. Yep.
even your leasing agreement though has a buyout of very nominal. So even if those computers are really good computers that we have now, we've leased them for 3-4 years.
If we could squeeze another year, if we had to, absolutely.
So last year when we were going through the budget process, you said you were going to use some of that DoD money on Promethean boards. Did you buy them?
We did.
You did buy.
Yeah.
We are officially equitable across every classroom.
So not just our
in
new
Groton Public
schools.
Oh, good.
Because as you're most likely aware, those were included in the budget for the building projects for those new schools, which left a hole and inequity for those other schools. That is 100% unknown. And those should give us, 5 to 7 years at a minimum, assuming we take good care of them.
Mhm.
I just have a small question about this. One last thing. Students pay $20 a year, or I guess parents pay it for Chromebook fee, and that's like, I worked out, it's probably about $90,000. My guess is not everyone has to pay that.
Correct.
Like maybe that goes along with free and reduced lunch. I don't know how you do it.
So technically, we're not allowed to use free and reduced lunch measure to means test that. So we do have an application so anyone can apply. And there are many people that apply for that, yes.
But it's more of an insurance package. If something should break, we have lost Chromebooks because kids will carry them down the hall.
Yeah.
And then
So yeah, that
So-
$20, we have a specific, I'm sorry to interrupt, we have a specific policy where that $20 will cover no questions asked for 2 full Chromebooks, which is $600 if I go and buy them, off the shelf and so
So
forth.
the $20 is insurance,
It is.
it kind of works as
Yeah,
insurance
so-
that we can buy
Exactly.
or repair.
right?
And that's grades 6 through 12. Because those are the model where students are issued those Chromebooks 24/7. They take them home and so forth. We pulled them back in this past summer because that hadn't been done in a very long time. And we wanted to refresh an inventory. We will do that during June and they will have those all summer.
And to me, I mean, $20 for one student is not much, but as family gets larger, it gets bigger each year. Or for a larger family. Somewhat, it seems at first blush inconsistent with Title I schools. But as long as there's easy access to waiving that fee, I'm okay with that from a principal stance on it. It's not so much. There is.
Okay.
It does correlate with Title I schools.
No, I'm sorry. There is an easy way to do that. To mitigate that for families with a financial hardship or multiple students in their family or what have you.
So not long forms that you don't know about. Okay.
No.
There is nothing.
Kind of a sign off, right?
It's- We do not fully means test it.
I have a few questions. So the budget number, which Kathy mentioned, can't be reduced year over year. Is that the million or the 81 million?
No, 79 right now is the minimum budget requirement.
Okay,
So once you increase it to 81, you can't go back down to 79 in subsequent years.
okay.
So,
Even if you
Unless-
lose your impact
Right.
aid or something,
You go through an act of Congress.
and
What's that?
like even if you lost the impact aid,
correct.
Right.
you would, so the town would have to fund that.
And the highest we can pass is the first motion, which was the roughly
Okay.
81
Right.
million.
Okay. And then, do you know, compared to other towns, so our town is, paying 62.1%. Or that's the proposed percentage that we contribute. Do you know what that number is in other towns? Just out of curiosity.
It's quite a bit.
All I know is that our per pupil cost is probably the lowest in this area. Next to Ledger is the lowest. So what we pay, if you take the total budget divided by the number of students, we're very efficient.
But that would include the impact aid.
Oh, it includes everything.
It includes
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
60 to 65% figure, I think is pretty typical for a Connecticut municipality.
Okay,
I think the exception would
so it's
probably be
pretty
New London,
similar.
which would also be in the Alliance District.
Yeah.
Actually,
Well, one of the city schools that might get more money from the state, as an alliance district, and additional funds beyond the ECS. You might find that they have less responsibility in the towns to pay.
New London, I think might be.
And then it looks like, are you adding an athletic trainer? Or,
We always had the athletic trainer, but I think we took it on in our budget. It was used to be a contracted.
Used to be contracted, yeah, now it's
And
an
now-
employee.
oh,
That was actually added last year. What you might be seeing is we did add a PCBA, which is a board certified behavior analyst.
And that's something we used to
Oh.
also contract from Learn. So we actually brought one on board because of the need,
okay, so you were just paying for it in a different way.
right?
I see. Okay, I was just looking at the line items that had the largest percentage.
Yeah, that's what we usually do. And then we actually have a cheat sheet. This is another invention. So we have this sheet that has comments, and highlights anytime it goes up to showcase why the reason is that it's been done that way. So, that's something we can include
Certainly.
in the future for
Yeah.
people. That would
That'd be
help.
good,
And
yeah. That would
big, so you can read it.
Yeah.
Not like this stuff.
Yeah.
So that was an invention to help us out. And the board actually came up with that. And we actually have narratives in budget book that you can also read. I think you can see that,
Yeah,
the narrative section that we revisit every year. So we're really we give details so that people can understand it better.
okay, so I'm just wondering what transportation supplies is, or
What page are you on?
page 2-2, line 38. And I see that's the breakdown is, oh, never mind, that's the diesel. Should have worked before I asked.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be your diesel. It corresponds to
Yeah,
page 2-5.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Brought long notes at this point. I just right discussed budget.
No, let them know all the things we talked about.
For what it's worth, ChatGPT says that Connecticut's average share of Board of Education is 60%, but it can range from 50 to 80. But again, consider the source. So that's as of 2021.
Yeah, it's just.
About 60.
Any other questions on this? All right, I'll call the vote. And to be clear that what we're voting on is the amended number. And this number, my understanding is level budget, the same number as we approved last year. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so the motion is for $79,157,271 for account 1080 education. And I guess we can just do show of hands, all in favor for that. Favor, let me write this down. All opposed? You opposed? And
We don't have anybody. up
yeah,
there.
just checking. You opposed. That motion fails. 2 in favor, 3 opposed, 0 abstained. My very first vote in the RTM, I voted the wrong way. But I did it this time. Would you like, we can still discuss, now we're back to the original motion. We can entertain more discussion, straight to the vote on that. So I'll call a vote for original motion. This is $8,510,627.
No,
No.
81. no.
Yeah, let me do it again.
A real.
I really couldn't do
No,
that.
I didn't. Thank
Isn't almost painted.
Yeah. Thank you, because I actually didn't have comments.
Comments help.
Let me try again. So this is for account 1080 education, 8,510,000.
No, 81 million.
81 million. Oh, I'm missing the one. Okay, there it is. Okay.
You've been.
Okay, here we go. Try again. Education account 1080,
I'm
81
not that
million,
bad, Susan.
$510,627. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Okay. That passes, 3 in favor, 2 opposed, and 0 abstaining. The reverse of that. Was off by order of magnitude. An early
a big
mentor
cut.
told me
That's
that
why I said
was
we
an
don't
order of
have that
magnitude
kind
between
of
friends. All right. Sort of the CIPs. And we're not going to deal with them in order. We're going to deal with the ones that are non-zero. And so we've got several CIPs, and these are all in the actual out of Groton budget book, starting at page 225. And it's A, B, E, F, G, H, I. The ones that started out as 0 in the manager's budget and were still 0 from the town council are CIP A, Fitch High School Athletic Facility, B, Fitch High School Field House, E, Fitch High School Culinary Arts, and H, Fitch High School Bleachers. And so we'll skip those for now, but at the end, if anyone, since they're still on our agenda, you can talk about it, but we'll get to the ones that we can actually recommend on each one. So that would bring us to through CIP F, security cameras, page 220.
I'd like to make a motion for 5F security cameras, 245,000.
Okay, you can start discussion.
Now that is the one that we've got in the grant. So according to this grant, you might be able to explain this better than I, Sam, that I think we have to pay the full amount, but then they reimburse us half.
Yeah, with state grants, you have to approve the full amount.
Yep.
Should we get it?
And that due date for that grant is this Friday.
And
should
we're
know.
getting it
You
in,
should
right?
know.
Yep, we are meeting tomorrow to push it through and push the button so it's in.
So hopefully.
And again, just to reiterate, we would have to pay all of it, but then reimbursed half, and that would then
Yep.
return to.
Should we get the grant?
Yep.
Which,
Exactly.
fingers crossed. And that will bring all of our buildings, our newer buildings have really quality cameras and our older buildings do not. And they need, there's areas, especially at the high school, where we need some cameras, like,
If I may, very quickly, I use this analogy with the Board of Education and the Town Council. It seems to work, but please ask questions. It's a 3-layer cake. First layer are these specific security cameras, radios, panic buttons, and so forth that we really desperately need to upgrade at those non-new schools to bring them on par with the new schools. Many of these systems are 15+ years old. We've lost cameras, broken down, and so forth. The systems that then manage it and so forth, bring it together into a central system. The hardware is failing and we're trying to keep it on the road and so forth. So layer 1 is really the hardware, the stuff to put into those schools that are not the new ones. The second layer is software that stitches that all together. Right now, if you go into Charles Barnum School, you need to physically enter the building, get into an office, and then you are able to access the remaining cameras that are still functioning in that building. What this second layer will do, first layer will even up the hardware. The second layer will stitch all cameras across all of Groton together into a single system that is secure, so that the superintendent needs to view it, principal, director of maintenance, and through the appropriate processes, both town and city police could be able to access that securely from a phone, from a cruiser, what have you. So that second layer is really about accessibility, appropriate accessibility in a timely fashion to get there. If you don't mind, if you'll humor me, the third layer, which is G on this, really is a joint project between Board of Education, town, PD, and fire department, which is a third layer that if there is an incident that's triggered by a phone call, 911, or a panic button being pushed, or a big red button on a security app on a phone that's by a security person or a principal or what have you, this system is called MutualLink. What it does is it puts all of the people, the first responders, on an open channel via cell phone or radio or what have you. It identifies the cameras that are in the vicinity of that, because as you can imagine, if there's an incident, you have 100 cameras to look at. You don't necessarily want to go through 100 cameras. You want the 2 or 3 that are at the incident, and it lays it over a
map of the school.
A map of the school, a floor plan of the school. So G is really the third layer to the cake, where F is layers 1 and 2 to that, where it stitches it together. The main uses of that will be for those first responders to be able to leverage layers 1 and 2 to use 3 to get, help in a more efficient way. So data and communications are activated immediately for that.
And we are a campus, so one of the important things is the state has already authorized it for Grasso. So that this mutual link is going to happen, so that is, having all 3 schools in the same campus with police department across the street. But to be able to zoom into our schools in an area that would be an emergency situation, it just saves us so much time, and the quicker they can really get to whatever the alarm is, the more likelihood we have in rescue.
So just to reiterate, sorry, not to beat a dead horse here, but F is layers 1 and 2. Layer 1 is the hardware to make it equitable and even across the schools. Layer 2 is the software that securely stitches that together to grant access to those personnel who need it. And then G is the third layer, is this MutualLink system, which focuses and opens a channel in a timely fashion to use those resources in 1 or 2 to make decisions and get help.
I found that analogy helpful. I heard it through town council.
Great.
It's good to hear.
Yeah,
Thank you. It seems to work. So.
Our RTM.
everybody
the
remembers
annual-
cake.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
might have to bring cake.
Yeah.
But is it important to have all these steps at the same time? It seems like it
Yeah.
will be to me. I wonder if you could speak to that.
Steps 1 and 2, yes. If we just did the first layer, we would be then equitable in cameras across the district, but you would still need to be able to physically enter a building if you wanted to get full
And
access.
get a map and figure it out. This
And-
mutual link is the
Yeah.
real icing on the cake. This is the absolutely, as the superintendent spoke, my
Wait,
job
I
is
thought that was
safety.
the third layer.
Icing.
2 layers.
It never mentioned icing.
Okay, well, how about the cherry? The cherry on top. That will be it.
So, to me, this is just, it's a worry every day.
Oh,
And police, both town and city, will be able to access the software to layer 2, but they do it together in that third layer, the mutual link, which pulls together the map, the open communication channels, because you could have a police officer on a radio, you could have a public school administrator on a cell phone, et cetera, et cetera. So.
And I think you mentioned that town council, it is feasible to get the new hardware in over this coming summer.
Yes, I believe Counselor Franco put it in her book that we would, if this was to.
Gave him a challenge.
That it would be in by the first day of school. That is our goal. I've been working with the company that gave us the original quotes on all this, which are 8 or 9 months old, because we've been looking into funding for this for that time. They are refreshing those quotes. I double checked with availability of the proposed hardware. Obviously, I'm going to need to follow the purchasing requirements of the Board of Education for this dollar amount, but they assured me that those times to get that equipment have shrunk considerably. And this one company, should they be awarded or not, has penciled us in for summer work. So
do you have to go out for 3 bids for this? Any of this, right? Yeah, okay.
Be advertised. And the grants
Yeah.
for 50%, that if it comes in.
Is it? It could
It's-
even be more.
yeah, I think it's 48 to 58% was the
Yeah.
advertised amount. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam. I believe that was it.
Reimbursement.
Yeah. After we pay the full, what would come back?
Yeah, well, it could be as high as 58%,
Yeah.
but Groton is generally in the 50% range, so until we get the grant, they haven't told us exactly what it would be. Could be up to 58%.
And that's for this, we're talking about
For F.
the bundle, so it's F, so that's both the hardware and then the software at building level.
Layer 1 and layer 2, not the icing.
Got it. Still keep the third layer.
Yes, the third layer. You pick what you like in your third layer.
Could be like birthday.
We have to talk about the culinary arts next. You doing this? Sure.
And then the sticky problem.
Any other discussion on that? And just want to make sure, so we've got the number is 245,000, and that checks out.
Yes. Mhm.
Right. So I'll call a vote. This is for CIP, actually, let me get those. Is it called?
5F.
5F. CIP 5F, and it's for $245,000. All in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Okay, that passes unanimously. That takes us to first 2 layers. Move on to the next. I've got to record the vote first. Then.
I'll make a motion for 5G, district safety and security,
I'll
$150,000.
second. Any discussion?
I think we talked enough about cake.
This is a very secure software. I'm assuming.
Same question came up at the town council. So yes, nothing is 100%.
Right.
We work very hard to make sure that all of our information systems are as secure as possible. We have cyber insurance. We follow state data privacy rules and so forth. There will be a process on who and how has access to this. Obviously, we want it to be flexible so the right people get access to it so they can help. But we certainly do not need unsecured people accessing the system via cameras or panic buttons or videos or anything like that.
Right.
So yes.
And is it,
Viewing the cameras on a 24-hour basis.
Yeah.
They have to.
It's only
do you have
That would
some
only be
sort
school
of-
Be
personnel.
giving them access.
Is there some sort of maintenance agreement with them? Like you don't just purchase the software and then
So this is,
they're out of the loop?
though the vendor, there would be a small percentage ongoing basis for this that you'd see in the next year's operating budget. And again, this would cover licensing and all set up for Board of Ed to interface with town and city police and fire department and so forth. So this is across the board. This is just for the third layer, it's inclusive of all town components.
And that's my question about that is you can see, so it's be able to access the schools from all town police. I would guess fire as well, or and then is the town doing this in any other buildings?
They could,
They,
once this is done, they can get their own cameras and they can extend it to town halls and
to be clear,
libraries.
we're talking about the third layer.
Yeah.
of Mutual link system, because layers 1 and 2 that we already voted on
Right.
would be Board of Ed buildings only.
Right.
There is no reason why that the town couldn't decide that this third layer should include town-owned security systems in a library or a town hall or an annex or what have you.
Or senior center?
Mhm.
Or sorry, Thrive 55.
Yes,
Or even Sacred Heart,
that,
Right,
you know,
That
the other
decision-
schools too, that.
Yep.
They put in the cameras that
all right.
that have that
Oh, and the
security
school over there by,
and marine science.
yeah. I have a couple notes here from when I was watching the town council, the grant, there's no grant that will cover this portion of it.
not that I'm aware of.
Not at
Okay.
this time, however, there are security grants that come out, sometimes that will allow you to apply for those
After the grant?
grants for things that you have done within the last 6 months.
Oh.
You know, we find that out later. I'm not promising
Right,
that or
right.
anything, but there are times when the state puts out grants and say that if you've done certain stuff within a certain period of time previously, that you can apply for that.
I would say one of the best,
We keep our eyes open for that.
one of the best investments that we ever made was hiring Shannon Weigel, who is our grants coordinator part-time. She is constantly monitoring and watching for all the state work, all the education, all the DODIAs. So, you know, between the staff and then having Shannon on board, you know, she's going to give the board a report. It's quite impressive of what's been accomplished even this 1 year. So.
And I did write down implementing summer of 2023.
You put it in your
Yeah.
book too.
I
Yes,
did.
correct.
And I use the word feasible.
Thank you. Yes. I will do everything under my power, should this be funded, to make that work for the start of school.
Yeah, gotta have those kids safe.
I know.
And again, the work in the 3 new schools is going to be minimal. It's really that second layer and stitching together. So
Right.
I guess I have a question on that. So, should this pass, is starting the Mutual Link waiting for the new hardware? Or would it start up already on the schools?
So there is prep work that we could be doing.
Yeah.
It's not a linear where layer 1 has to be complete to get to layer 2, to get to layer 3. That being said, to fully implement layer 3, we would need to have 1 and 2 fully implemented.
But we could test drive it with the schools that are ready to go.
We could, yes. So we can start them in parallel, but we would need to complete all 3 phases in order.
All right. Any other discussions? All right, I'll call a vote. This is for CIP 5G, 150,000. The correct number, right?
Yeah.
All in favor? All opposed? Anyone abstaining? That passes unanimously. We have one last one with dollars in it. Let's see.
No,
It
it's
is
5I.
I, right?
Yep,
So it's
I'm-
5I Fitch High School sewer line repair. That's on page 231. Anyone
is
like to
your-
make a
your-
motion?
Sticky problem.
I think it's 75,000.
75,000.
So you have to make a motion for this.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to make a motion for the 75K for 5I.
All right, discussion.
I have a question, because I remember the exact same thing that Rachel did. That you talked about this already, that it was an emergency that it had to be fixed, but then you said at the council meeting, you kind of put a Band-Aid on it to fix it till we get this money.
That's true.
So from what I understood, when I heard the same thing she heard, and neither one of us remember where we saw that or heard it. The pipe is totally disintegrated, is that right?
There are sections of the pipe that.
So
are
how do you put a
disintegrating.
Band-Aid on nothing? That's my
No,
question.
no, it's about 4 feet below the slab in the middle of
Right.
the building, which you can't get to.
Right,
And that has run through there and it has essentially a tunnel through there. So
Mhm.
the sewerage is still running through there.
Mhm.
So it goes from pipe to bare ground
And
to
back
the
to
pipe
pipe,
again.
yeah.
And the Band-Aids were in places where we could get to where it came out of that slab into a tunnel, for instance. It blew out a corner of that where it had an elbow in there, blew the elbow out. So we
Okay.
were able to repair those sections on a temporary basis until we get this done.
Okay,
So what they can do is they can actually go down there and put a lining in those areas where the pipe is disintegrated.
and that's the permanent fix.
That will be the permanent fix. There may be, this is based on what they saw presently or a couple of months ago.
Put cameras down.
Yeah, when they actually start doing the work, it could change a bit, but we have some pretty good photographs and pretty good idea where it is.
My recollection is we heard that the joint meeting, with the Board of Ed,
Oh,
Town Council and the
thank you.
RTM.
Oh, yeah, that was.
Yes,
yeah.
that's
It's,
right.
so that's why it was a hard one to search through for.
Yes.
Where it came from. And timeline for fixing it, is that?
Right away.
Yeah.
I'm writing the bid spec right now, putting it in advertising for bids. And we would plan on doing it as soon as school is over, while school is out. Some of the work could be done during school if we had to, but the plan is to get it done during the summer when nobody's in the building.
And so I don't think anyone's gonna, say against the urgency of this, but I'll ask, are there grants for something like this?
I haven't found any yet.
Because, is this the only location that's like this, or is
We
it
hope.
running through
It's
somewhere subterranean in the
There are-
passageway?
There are lots of pipes and lines that are below the slab throughout the older portion of the building. Some
We call it
are
the
in tunnels that
vintage
we
side.
can access and see. And those we've checked out, but there may be other areas, but we're not aware of at this point.
That
This is
was-
the oldest part of the building.
That was phase 2 that never got accomplished, remember, for Finch High School, where they rebuilt the
I
one
went to
side.
that vintage side, so
I know.
you're calling me vintage.
Well, I would be as vintage as you are or more.
And so are there plans to kind of get someone in and survey the other areas?
We will, want to get this repaired, and then the plan would be to have them come back and take a look at some other areas.
So this has nothing to do with the budget, but if that deteriorated part of the pipe is under a slab, how did you know that it's not?
Well, we didn't know that. Cameras, they put the cameras.
But
down,
why?
went down
Why,
there.
what precipitated?
We had a leak in one of the tunnels. We had sewer flies. We have sewer flies, you have a sewer leak somewhere. So
Oh,
we opened up the tunnel, went down in the tunnel.
Okay,
and found the
gotcha.
leak.
Okay.
And that's when we had them run the cameras down the lines and check the lines in that area.
Okay.
Sam wears all kinds of hats.
Like
I believe I know the answer to this, but
sewer tunnel
Yeah.
worker.
this was not looking into classroom areas or things, places used by students,
Oh,
teachers.
outside, right?
No, it's in the weight room or the locker room areas. Most of it's in a hallway there and under the slabs in the locker room area. So it's not there's no smell to it.
Might never pick it up in a locker room. Okay. So there's no health risk to.
No health risk.
The students.
Correct.
Or staff.
That company also, when they did the camera work, they also came and cleaned it all out, sanitized the area that had the leak.
All right, any other discussion? I'll call a vote for CIP 5I for $75,000. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstaining? So that's 500, that passes unanimously. That's what we have for dollar amount. The other CIPs actually are mostly connected to athletic field, one way or another. And I just, if you'd like to talk about it a lot, we can. I just like to say that clear there's a need to.
I'm sorry, I forgive me for interrupting, but Kim Shepherdson Watson does have a raised hand.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she would like to.
just in time.
Where is she?
We're talking about fields and such.
I don't even see her. Oh, there she is.
Where?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes,
we can.
Okay, so I think the reason why we put on the I don't know why I can no longer see you guys, sorry. The reason why all the other items which were zeroed out by John Burt, so that was the field, the bleachers. We knew that that amount was above and beyond what a CIP, what we could tolerate. But we just wanted to, I think that the board wanted to really make a statement that these items cannot be forgotten about. And so we just kind of wanted to throw that out there. We know that it's part of the field process, but things are deteriorating pretty quickly, and we just didn't want that to get lost. The culinary arts program is in really conjunction of our really focusing on career readiness, that we know that many kids will go off to college, many kids will go off to military, but many kids will also want to have career. And so what we're doing is really trying to update our culinary room. And once again, the price tag is big. But we are hoping that we could that we could partner with the town to be able to either find grants and or businesses or other funds or town funds where we could update our culinary program so that we could continue on with our career readiness grant. And so that's why I raised my hand. That's why we put it in the CIT.
we had also taken care of the actual architectural plans. We took care of that. I can't remember how, ARPA funds maybe, or.
Yes.
So the plans are already
So the
done.
plans are done. And we also took care of HVAC plans and took care of some HVAC too with those funds. So we're kind of ready to go with some of those projects. So just wanted to let you know that it is, like I said, it's probably the most sought after course, and we've done some things by giving it semester courses. But really, we want to get the Falcon Cafe back up in Adam, where we can actually serve the community and the kids can have the full understanding of what a career in, in food services would be like, where they would actually prepare the food, serve the food, and they can actually do events for different for different communities. So that is definitely high on our list, as are the fields and the bleachers. The bleachers, I have concerns, safety concerns there. So I just wanted to add that, Kim.
Yep. No, thank you.
And I see Dr. Ackerman too.
Dr. Ackerman?
That better?
Yes.
I just wanted to underscore how important it is for kids to have the experience of serving the community, because at the Martin Luther King Ecumenical Service, the culinary department did our get together after the service in the church, and it was a wonderful experience. The food was great, and the service was wonderful, and I know that the students learned from that experience.
Thank you, Andrea. That's true. I was there too.
So the culinary program is ongoing. It's quite popular. It's just the facility.
It looks like a home ec. It's goldenrod, home ec, like from when I was in school. I won't tell you when that was. So they really need more commercial. We've actually replaced a couple of the ovens with, we bought a couple stoves from the Perkins grant, but they're already they're not equipped to be like for restaurant business or for commercial work. They really are like stoves, but we had to use something to bake. So
This is in the vintage wing of Fifth.
in the vintage wing.
And part of the holdup with the fields is we're still waiting
The
on
study.
the
Committee.
field
Yeah.
committee. And my knowledge, I don't have a horizon for when they're
We don't
reporting
either.
out. It seems like it's been that way for the last couple of years.
Well, there was talk about Claude Chester, but now you had to go into Claude Chester because now the town's thinking about putting TVCC in there in a temporary basis.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so, to me, I guess, you can only wait so long. So might have to forge ahead and sort of have that as a part of the fields plan that's already there, much like I'm sure the new Groton Middle School fields are incorporated into their plans. Maybe new Fitch fields could be too. For myself, I saw the field house is there too. And funding something like that, I want to make sure that's truly coeducational. It
Yes.
supports equally our female and male.
It is
I-
not at this point. There's Title IX concerns.
Yeah, and so that would have to be.
That was
a part
really
of
the
it.
driver on doing the study or
Yeah.
the architectural plans that we did. She was well aware of the fact that.
Yeah, we did those plans too.
Right.
That's right.
And that goes along, I think, with the plans for the field to be more of a multi-use.
Are there any
Right.
grants for doing any of that?
We haven't found any yet.
Any other discussion on?
Just, my concern is that we're still paying for the schools and we will be for years.
Right.
And to add more bonding on top of bonding on top of bonding, it's a lot. But again, I understand,
Right.
but I mean, how much can you pay for?
You had said last year, talking about the culinary program, I think it was maybe the equipment. We get reimbursed a certain percentage. I don't know if I'm remembering correctly or not.
Well, with the Perkins, we do get a Perkins grant every year and we've really earmarked those dollars. Can't remember, $58,000 maybe. It's like a number like that in my head. But that has been earmarked for culinary. So we've been able to make some of the improvements in there, but it's certainly not 600,000 that would
Right.
be. And it would give us more space. We can only fit 16 children on each side, but if we were able to renovate, we could possibly get like 40 kids in that space each
These are
period.
classes during the day, right? Because I know you also have like a cooking club after school, I believe, too, right?
Right, we do all of that.
I toured the facility at Grasso over the summer. And it
It's
was
phenomenal.
ridiculously impressive.
Oh, it is.
You know,
So that whole school is
that
beautiful.
scale, but that was very impressive. Like, it'd be nice to have something, I don't know.
Maybe I can get them to run a course after school for my kids. We're actually working on that. We thought we were going to get broadcasting done this year, but they couldn't get a staff member. But there are possibilities where the state schools are opening up like an afternoon for credit. So, I mean, it would be a small number of our kids, maybe a dozen, but a dozen could get, one of the courses, manufacturing or culinary, if they could find the teacher. So that was hopeful. Some shared services there. That was really helpful.
And the Perkins grant, that's a $58K a year. How does that come in?
Actually.
Oh, is it 70 now?
70 this year.
And do we get it because we're a school, a certain type of community, or?
Yeah, it's one of those categorical ones that we get. The amount is based upon the total amount they have, and they split it amongst the eligible districts.
And it really correlates with CTE programming, which we have, career technology programming in our schools. So they don't just give it to everybody. It's those schools that have those kind of programs.
Do you have to spend that Perkins money the year you get it?
Yep.
Oh, save it up.
I know.
Well, the equipment that we purchased that has been cataloged and given to the architect, so she's included that in the redo of the project, should it happen. Not just buying it and then setting it aside.
As long as it lasts. Yeah.
Now, why didn't you buy commercial stoves instead of
I
buying?
think it was a space issue. We didn't have
Oh.
the space
Yeah, they-
or the electrical component. We couldn't do that much without having this project done first.
Just out of curiosity, do you know how many students are interested in a culinary career versus students who just,
Do it for fun.
right,
For life.
just want to learn how to cook?
We could probably find that information on Naviance, but there is definitely interest in learning more about it. That is an overfilled what is it, a couple hundred
Consider-
per year for students?
Yeah,
and
we're
there's
limited
wait
by
lists
space.
and-
But we've made changes in the
We have
schedule
made
to accommodate
changes,
more
yep.
for next year.
And with this project, we can get even more kids in there. And if I call Grasso, maybe they'll open up the culinary wing.
Is
I'd like to use their football field.
program, is that full every year?
I'm not sure, but when I've been in there, it seems like, but it's huge space. It's beautiful space. It looks like any, superb restaurant, right? Or hospital, like it's like a hospital setting, like it's just gorgeous. Our kids are really lucky here that they have all these opportunities and all these different magnets, in and out of Groton. So it's a good place to be.
Well, thank you. That's a good note to end on. I apologize for trying to slash the budget by twice, but by accident, but I think every day. I know it's worth it. I would think that both to adjourn.
Second.
Great. All in favor? We are. That passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you to the committee. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, I got it. I think I went that great one. No, I had to go.
Yeah, it gets out a whole bunch of Nick Leroy.
She came in at the right time.
That's right.
Her voice.
I got it.
So-
Perfect.